a fast evolution of that technology. Like for the internet, if it wasn't for games, I know where this industry would be right now. If you think about it, Steve Jobs was an intern at Atari, right? So whether it's from a technology perspective or whether it's from a business perspective, gaming has always pioneered new technology and mass adoption into those technology. And just as it has with the internet, I think it's going to be a massive impact. The first, I don't think it's going to be the first billion, but at least the first million is probably going to be coming from the gaming side.
Yeah, I think gaming has pioneered a lot of things, mainly because a couple of points. Number one, gaming is a form of entertainment. You guys seem like you're mostly from the blockchain space, so like you've heard about decentralizing banking or this or that. Those are all kind of like binary, either use this or that. If you're going to decentralize banking, that means I'm not going to use my Hana bank and use this bank, right? Gaming is a form of entertainment and it's not zero sum. We can always have more forms of entertainment. So people are willing to try new things because we want to be entertained. We'll look at new YouTube videos, we'll discover, we'll tinker. But if you're saying we're going to decentralize a serious industry, I think for adoption to happen, people are more skeptical and more careful about that. Second thing, I think gamers and blockchain, there's a lot of overlap, right? And the most interesting about blockchain and gaming is the use of a token and what token can do, right? And Benny explained that very, very thoroughly, right? And as a gamer, understanding a virtual currency is very, very easy. You don't have to teach them anything, right? You know what a virtual currency is. It's a medium of exchange. You can represent an item. It's something that can be traded and it can evolve, and it's something you can own. So I think, in my perspective, I think the blockchain industry has more to benefit from gaming because I think it will be the first use case and drive the first 10 million users into using blockchain. Now, whether these gamers know they're using blockchain is another story. I think most of them won't know they're using blockchain because as any kind of backend technology, whatever game you're playing, you don't really know their technology stack. You don't really care what server you're running. But you care about the token because that's front end and that's part of the user experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and because Junie and Jason, you mentioned mass adoption, let's be realistic here. So CryptoKitties, as we know, is one of the most popular blockchain game in the history, can I say that, so far, on blockchain. But how many DAU do you have? 3,000? 4,000, right? So compared to real popular games, I mean still, blockchain games has really small number of DAU. So how we're gonna solve it, right? And what would be the realistic goal of the blockchain game users, let's say by the end of next year?
So if you're looking at DApp Radar and DApp Review, I would take that with a grain of salt because that's only showing the smart contract calls. And if you want to be conservative, then yes, you could use that number. But people spend hours on the website using Excel spreadsheets, doing some analysis. Do you count that DAU? It doesn't count right now, right? What about all the Kittyverse games that we are working on internally, but also in an ecosystem? Some of them have chosen to be off-chain, some of them have chosen to be on-chain. Do you count those as DAU? Certainly DApp Radar and DApp Review don't. So there is definitely data of which we have internally from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel. Now I would say that, yeah, you're probably correct, we're in the tens of thousands, not in the millions or the hundreds of thousands, and that is true. So one of the ways to scale up, I mean, we think that the platforming the game like CryptoKitties where people could build on top is one way to scale it. There is definitely a component of which we are waiting for the foundation to find a viable solution that's scalable and also secure. So in some ways, we're in many discussions and staying close to some of the solutions that are available in the market. So that is kind of how we think about it from our side, and how that if you look at those numbers, I just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, so the numbers for DS particularly are very, very low, because so when Sheena says blockchain gaming, again, what does that mean, right? Is it a fully decentralized app, or is it a game that's a hybrid that uses a private game server, but tokenizes some of its assets? It can mean very different things. Now, if you're talking about the former and saying a total like decentralized app like CryptoKitty, I think there's just too many hurdles. I think we won't see mass adoption for a while. And while could mean years, in my personal opinion. And I think number one, I think Benny's mentioning is kind of the user experience. There's just a lot of friction, right? There's a lot of friction. And number two, I think just not a lot of developers are really into blockchain dApps right now, right? How many game developers you know your friends are making, out of all of them, how many are making blockchain games? It's just less than 1%, right? So until that happens, it's a chicken and egg game. I think there has to be one use case, right? Someone has to make a lot of money, and then they will follow. And then someone else makes a lot of money, and then everyone will follow, right? So someone has to make a lot of money first, and that's just the economic side of things. That's just the reality, right? Someone has to make a lot of money. And when someone makes a lot of money, then we'll have a lot more content creators, and then we'll have better products, and then we'll see mass adoption. Now, for the second part, when you're talking about just blockchain-enabled games, or games that are private games but are using some aspects of blockchain, more specifically like tokenizing their items and trading it, I think mass adoption can happen as soon as this year or next year. I think NHN will probably be one of the first people to bring a lot of games over. But we're not only focused on DS, we're focused on traditional games, but creating a marketplace where people can exchange, and also focused on esports. But if you neighbor, you can find more information about that.
So Jason, you mentioned a very interesting thing. So there are blockchain games and games enhanced by blockchain, right? So I think you just defined these two. What's more interesting to you? Because you're coming from the later one.
So both are. So this is again my personal opinion, not NHN's opinion, Jason's opinion. I think both are interesting, but I think the dApp game, the decentralized game, I think are very interesting if used the right way. So I like, you guys know a company called like Roblox? It's kind of like Minecraft, it's like a virtual world. I think a decentralized virtual world game, within that game we have a lot of mini games, and you have NFTs, and the game can be decentralized and run by its players, a virtual world. I think that's something that really excites me personally as a gamer. And on the other side, I think playing AAA games that you play on Steam or Blizzard games on Battle.net, if those can be, those items that you have in your inventory when you're playing WoW or you're playing Overwatch or PUBG, if that can be liquid in a secondary market and you can trade skins, I think that's also very interesting to me too, both of them. So I like both, but I think they both have specific use cases.
About this question, I think it's insane to put everything on the blockchain. So from a transaction point of view, what's important for the gamer and what is important for the company, like think about that and like decide what to put on, because literally or technically you can probably put every click that a user does on the blockchain, but what value is that apart from you could kill the Ethereum network and make it go down, right? But at the same time, deciding that what is valuable for the user and what is valuable for the company, I think is very important discussion to talk about, because like from a mobile games business experience, there's so much data that's on the server of the database that the company looks into on a daily basis, and that data alone can be very, very valuable, but at the same time that is user data. So a game company owns every single movement or data that the user generates from a game, and right now that belongs to the game company, right? So that is something I think that's worth thinking about. And also from the user's perspective, if they can get all that data onto their ID, if they can own that data, I mean, that can be like a resume for them, right? So you know, if everything goes on the blockchain of what a user does, then that could